Hey, good afternoon. I think we're ready to start. Felix, you there?
I am. Hello.
Excellent. Okay. Well, hopefully everyone's enjoying the factory tour. It's day 3. It's the last day, and I think we can get started on the UX UI session. So, what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about our design system. And because it's the factory tour, in the spirit of the factory tour, we'd love to get behind the scenes. We want to take you backstage. We want to go a little deeper, and we want to show you a little more than perhaps you've seen already and some of the things we're covering. But if I take us all the way back and start looking at how we think our design system is perhaps different or more involved than others that we've seen before, I want to share with you our philosophy around how our design system looks, feels, and works slightly different. So if you take the whole customer experience, that's really a bubble which includes the user experience and the user interface. And if you add all those together, what we've really decided upon is looking and feeling and working is part of that whole journey. And Steve Jobs actually defined that many, many moons ago, where a product and a design is not just about that look and feel. So if we dig deeper into each of those, a look for us is the coloring in. You know, we joke around it, but it's actually the things that you see and touch and engage with probably on a regular basis. And we've called that one the coloring in stage of looks. But a user experience is actually how that product feels. And in using all of our products, you know, each one of them has traditionally perhaps had a different feel, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's right, but it might have been right at the time. And so that feeling is that usability. And lastly, it's the architecture and how it works that really brings our design system together and actually gives you that cohesive feel around how that product is actually going to be received in that whole user experience. From actually the landing pages when you initially get introduced to the product through to the splash screens when it's being installed, that encompasses the whole journey for a product user. So why do we need a design system? Well, we believed that when we took out many of our products, they were actually underinvested for a long, long time. So we didn't have the opportunity to start from scratch. We didn't have the opportunity to start with a clean slate, and therefore there were things that were great about our products that we had to retain, and that experience, that feel, we wanted to have that continuity, but at the same time we wanted to modernize. So actually enhancing the customer experience through those products and services was a #1 key element in which we had to keep and capture. And the design systems that were available, whilst many were best practices, probably didn't quite fit that for us. And equally, once we started to standardize on that particular process and those particular elements, we found that the ability to accelerate delivery came about from that standardization. And therefore, all developers could rally around one particular environment which was both relevant to them and had that future look and feel. It gave us product differentiation because we could also adhere to the best practices from some of the design systems that were out there already, like Fluent, like Material, like Carbon. But actually, our one had the ability to take what was there in our products, which made our products great, and what we could actually do with those products in making them even better going forward. And then lastly, because many of our products are around app development, they give you that opportunity as a partner, as a customer, the ability to design your own add-ons, interfaces and such like. We felt that by giving you a design system which was very relevant to this range of products, our suite of products of digital solutions, we would offer our partners competitive advantage by enabling them to actually develop apps that completely sat cohesively with our products as well. And that design system is essentially something that we're going to show you and talk about going forward. It's a design system that ultimately we would like to open source, and that's why 2021 is going to be an important year for us. And that design system has 3 areas that are important, and those 3 areas consist of, #1, the branding elements. So they're made up of logos, of typography, of photography, very specific to digital solutions, very specific to HCL. But those guidelines around those illustrations and how we use them, we would openly share with you. The second is the components. They're the things that you would typically more likely be engaged with and using on a day-to-day basis. The guidelines of how you use certain icons. The guidelines on how you use actually most of the branding elements are there. And then on the UI implementation, we want that standard look and feel across the entire suite of products. So that's the component element of the design system is very important. And lastly, and actually an area where we're going to be focusing heavily on in the coming years is that whole user research. Not only from the personas, because we're very fortunate certainly in digital solutions, many of our personas actually use multiple products. And Felix is definitely going to cover off some examples later in this session. But also the demo content that we're going to be using. We're able to standardize the look and feel around that, and that actually makes it easier for you to consume and understand the products, as well as show them to your internal people, staff, and actually as partners, show them to your customers as well. So I'd like to pause there, and I would like to say, Felix, I'd love you to introduce everyone to Enchanted 2021.
Thank you, Tony. So I'm actually very excited to be sharing some of the stuff that we've done with Enchanted and how we've applied Enchanted into our products. And I'm going to be able to share some examples with you later on. But I just wanted to quickly repeat what Tony has said and double down on some of the things that he mentioned. So Enchanted, and you can see the landing page of Enchanted right now on the screen, is going to become our single source of truth. So that all of the designers which we've hired who are working on the individual products have one place to go to enable themselves about the actual design patterns that we have created. Most of you are probably aware that when the transition happened for many of our products from IBM to HCL, we didn't take on the design staff. And that is actually a good thing because we now have design teams for those individual products who can take a look at these products with a fresh eye and take what they have learned and applied in other companies with other products into our products to get the best of both worlds, basically. And so these team members are going to be enabled by sharing expertise, but also by helping us document. And we do want to have your participation in that process as well. So we are probably going to share some information about a design partnership later on in the meeting. And the design system is not something that is done after 2021. So a design system is an always evolving guideline document where even if not using the exact component set that we offer right out of the box, contributing with different ideas, with different technologies is something of value. And so we constantly want to improve the designs that we create because the world out there isn't holding still. Everything is moving all the time. There are new things, new updates made. There are so many devices that are released. And so we need to be prepared for that. And we need to invest in that area to make sure that the designs that we produce for the products are always up to date. So taking a look at some of those guideline documents, you can see some of the different areas that Tony has mentioned earlier. You can see we have branding descriptions where we describe and have some deliverables for logos, but also new styles such as a completely new illustration guideline. We just released a new icon set within HCL a couple of weeks ago that we are still continuing to evolve. But then we go down as far as this explaining what each individual component is there for. So right now on the top right of the screen, you can see a button guideline, and on the lower left, you can see a text field guideline. And some of those components have been brought over by existing technology, but some of them are net new development. For example, the text field component, to make sure that there is accessibility in all of our components. Some of the components that we have took almost half a year to create because we wanted to make sure that you can use them on any device and also with all of the different functionalities such as keyboard access as well as offline access. So Tony has mentioned that very briefly when talking about what the contents are of a design system. And part of the design system for us needs to be talking about personas and about these individual users that are there to shape the product. And when talking about personas in digital solutions, we don't just talk about one specific persona, we talk about a multitude of personas because people in your organization might use a lot of different tools, and some of them might be of our portfolio, but some of them might be of other people's portfolio. You might also use Microsoft products. You might also use Apple products. And so we really need to make sure that we nail these personas in terms of what are they using in their day-to-day activities, and how can we make sure that all of those different tools connect with one another. There are some great examples for that with products that we have in the portfolio. For example, same time as a chat client is probably going to be used by all of these different personas, but they could also use a chat client of a different company. And a good example of how to integrate that is Connections, because Connections has taken Teams and has done a very tight integration with that. But then we also have more specific products like Digital Experience, which is primarily used by content marketers, by content managers, and designers who are actually building the experiences. And then we have tools like MX Vault, where there is a specific development persona. That could be a back-end developer, it could be a front-end developer. So we have to look at those individual personas and have to think about how do these people use the products interchangeably. Now, looking at the designs of our product and how we can make sure that we cater to those different personas is going to require a lot of work in terms of layout and theming. So when talking about theming, that means we want to make sure that even though our products need to be similar and they need to have one design language underneath, they need to be very different or different enough to be able to be distinguished between one another. So a good use case example is you have a multitude of apps on your phone, and there are some companies out there who use the same logo, like their own logo, for those applications that you have on your phone. I remember myself sometimes being confused in my last company when there were a multitude of applications and they all did different things, and the only differentiator was the name of the app. And so we really want to make sure that you can switch between your applications and reorient yourself very quickly, and that's why Enchanted is actually applying different themes for our product, where you see what we have on the left is the DX theme, the purple product, Connections, and then same time. You also see that those screenshots aren't displaying the same components, and that is because the different teams of digital solutions require different components and are headlining different components, which is really good because we can make sure that every product thinks about the components that they need for their product and keeps developing them and then sharing them with all of the other teams to use. So we only have to create a tiled design once and not twice. Talking about theming, there's also a really great thing happening where we can apply different themes, but also customer themes. So what you can do is you can use the theming of Enchanted and create your own theme on top of it to make sure that the product that we push out or some areas of that product look like your company. So they are custom branded, which I think for products like Connections might be the intended thing that you're doing at the moment. But it could also be a nice to have for applications like a chat client or an email client. And taking a look at the actual patterns that need to be consistent, but also need a ton of variation is layouts. So structures and patterns within a product can vary based on use case, and we are completely aware of that. So we need to make sure that the layout of the product and the different design patterns within the product needs to be customized based on the needs that you have while using the product. So, for example, if you use a chat client, that obviously needs to have a very different design than if you use a file sharing application. So based on that, we have developed different layouts and a very common layout structure which we are applying a ton of variations to so that we can make it custom fit for the individual use case. And you can see some of those examples on the screen. So I'm not going to take the time to walk through each of them, but we certainly have in the design system descriptions for all of those different layouts, and there are even more to come. So for the first one, which is our default layout, we have a branded site navigation, then we have a secondary navigation, header sections, and even some more futuristic things like having an inspector window that only opens if you have something on the screen selected, or depending on your selection of the screen, you will be able to see an action bar. So these are the things that you can do with the default layout. But then viewing a ton of different images and actually editing an image is a very different thing. And it becomes even more complex when we talk about something like site management or app building with products like DX and MX Volt. So talking about the different interfaces, I have 3 examples for you which kind of show how we apply the design system in different ways. And so if you have been listening in some of the presentations at the factory tour, you might have come across the term Project YUZU or the term Digital Office. So this is something that we are currently developing within the team where we want to take some of the capabilities that our products have today with some net new development and create a kind of office space for you to be able to do all of your tasks, have collaboration features such as meetings and chat, and be able to access information on the different team members. And this is a good example of taking a low-fidelity prototype that you see on the page and then applying Enchanted to make it look like our design system. And in this case, it's not even just applying Enchanted, but it's also applying some made-up persona use case. So you can see the different team members are actually personas that have been developed for that specific project, and the Sharp Contour Incorporated is an example company which you can restyle the header section of that tool. And then for showing a more complex example where we probably have to take different steps because it's not going to be net new development, Volt MX is a good example where we have different stages where we want to go through, where we start out with a product that has some inconsistencies with its user interface, where it's not clear if it's a light mode or a dark mode. And we are, first of all, applying a new branding on top of it. And while we are doing the rebrand, it's already going to look a little bit more like our design system does. But then we want to make sure that we have a complete adoption of the design system and want to be able to apply all of the different design patterns and components. And so what you see on the page right here is actually a light mode of Volt MX, which we also would have a dark mode available for the more developer personas that are used to seeing a dark mode. But what this design does as well is that it reorganizes the elements on the page so that all of your actions are in one place, all of your navigation patterns are in one place, so that the pattern is very consistent between all of our products. And then talking about something like mobile is another example where we have to always think about the difference between native mobile applications and custom mobile applications. So Enchanted actually has a great use case for developing Android mobile applications, where it is, because it some of the components are based on Material UI. Material UI is one of the design systems that is most often used in Android experiences. And so what you see on the page is same time that we have taken from the IBM styling and we have reapplied the Enchanted branding, which actually there isn't all that much branding happening on the page. So that is something that I think is really good with Enchanted, where it is a design system, but it's not actually applying a very heavy theme on top of it. So that things like your email product or like your chat client can be very brand agnostic, and there are only certain areas where we are playing with our brand in the product. And then walking through one of the designs that I'm headlining, which is digital experience, we actually see all of those three, some of that even in development. And so if you have been with our sprint reviews, most of the designs that I'm going to show you right now is what you've actually seen in development. And so what we've done in the first example is this is the first draft of our DAM, of a digital asset manager that we have created in the middle of last year, I think. And so what we've taken that, applied Enchanted, and this is what you can already use today. So if you've been with us with our last sprint review on Tuesday, you might have actually seen that this is very close to development with our designs, even though we do have some more in store for you. So a good example of that is the tiles component that we see on the page right now, because that tiles component is actually being reworked as we speak. So we want to add a lot more information on it. So there is already a huge improvement in the tiles component, but we keep investing in it and we keep working on those components to make them perfect. Another example is something that we already had in the product, and that's the authoring experience. And some of you might have already seen that the authoring experience with Content Composer has gotten a complete do-over. And most of the content manager activities can be done with Content Composer now, and you don't have to use the authoring portlet, even though we are still maintaining that portlet for some specific use cases. What you can see on the page as well is that we have different view options. So right now we are seeing a column view, but before that we have seen a tile view. And so those view options are what we want to offer in many of our products, so that navigation is going to become very flexible. We also have done a new design for the Site Manager, and Site Manager is a large topic, which I actually did a session I think it was Wednesday, yes. So I did a session Wednesday. That's going to be available, I think, next week for DX Inspire, Rethinking Site Manager's User Experience, where I've shown this design that you see on the page, which is a much more complex design than the previous ones, in a lot more detail, but we're going to walk through all of the different parts of the layout. And this is something that is currently still in the ideation process. So if you team up with us in the design partnership program we have for DX, you can actually help us develop those tools even further. So as I've shown a ton of examples right now, but we have been busy in so many different places as well. And so, Tony, why don't you take it back over and talk a little bit about those other areas of design?
Sure. Thanks, Felix. That was great. Look, you said it, we've been busy, but as it says here, we're only just getting started in the design piece. And the logos, the branding, the components, they're the beginnings. Here you can see the splash screens, which hopefully some of you, having loaded the new products that we launched this week during both DS Imagine, DX Inspire, and making some availability and awareness in Factory Tour, you've seen those splash screens. But it doesn't stop there. We're moving right across this screen here in terms of branding, in terms of the websites that you land at, and indeed the material that you consume and that you can actually look at, and then taking that forward into the future where other products, new products, some of the projects that you may have hopefully been able to attend the sessions on this week with Jason Gary's innovation. Actually, you'll see that this entire design system, Enchanted, is going to be popping up everywhere. And I think what really we need to think about is why. And the why for us, why is design important? Why is Enchanted important to you? Is because it's important to you because it's important to us. And great products make happy customers. And I think you've heard that already this week from Richard. But we believe it does start here. It's a very, very visual part of our design piece, and we want you involved. So Felix, let's show our last slide. And this is the first of the products that we think you can have huge impact in becoming a design partner. The details are there, and you can contact Felix directly via that email, and we would actively encourage you to learn a bit about the program, see how you can be involved, see what early access it provides you. And I just want to cover off a couple of the questions that we had here in terms of the some of the Q&A in here. What does open source mean? Well, that's a prime example. We want to build a community. Initially, it starts at a product level with the product teams, getting you involved. And then as Enchanted becomes more publicly available, some of the pages and the screens and components you saw from Felix, they're currently being built. So 2021, as we said, is key to Enchanted for us and the beginnings of opening it up and going forward. So that community is part of this design partnership. And then another question was the yellow in HCL notes. No, I don't think we did lose the yellow in HCL notes, but it's there, it's deep, it's rooted, but it's part of the suite. And it's definitely back down to that looks, feels, and works, which is going to be important going forward. So I am going to pause there. Thank everyone for their questions. If we haven't answered anything here now, we will do post the event. I would again repeat what Felix said, and that is all of the sessions have been recorded. They're all going to be available after today from Monday. So anything you missed during the week, anything you want to hear again, that's available, and the material will be available as well. And from Felix and I, we want to say thank you for attending this session. Please enjoy the rest of the factory tour and enjoy your weekend when it starts. Thank you.